for 515 Fantasy Football.
I know football.
Are you ready for some football?
Domination on Sundays begins with listening to these guys on Thursdays.
You ready for this?
Over 40 years of fantasy football experience between them.
Yeah!
One is a proud veteran of the United States Marine Corps, husband and father, entering his 18th year of fantasy competition. Brian Eikenberry. The other, also a proud husband and father, is one of the winningest fantasy minds in the state. Celebrating 24 years of excellence. Andy Hall.
Let's get the game on!
It's showtime. The 515 Fantasy Football Show with your hosts, Andy Hall and Brian Eikenberry.
Welcome one and all to the 515 Fantasy Football Show. Whether you're a brother or whether you're a mother, you're staying alive. Staying alive. Feel the city breaking and everybody shaking and we're staying alive. Staying alive. Ha, 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 ha. Staying alive. Staying alive. How much longer am I going to take this?
That's good enough, I think.
Had to do it. Sorry. Pivotal week 11 for our fellow fantasy footballers. The difference between the contenders and the pretenders happens this time of the season. And we're here to make sure none of our friends are pretenders. Andy Hall alongside Brian Eikenberry, live from my home studio situated in my basement. Nice to have you back in the bunker, Brian.
Man, glad to be back. Been busy, new baby, keeps you all sorts of busy and running around like a chicken with your head chopped off.
No question about that. Again, hope everything's going well for you and your wife. And, it's an adjustment as well for your son, who's, what is he, 4 years old now?
Yeah, he's 4, so we're dealing with the whole why am I not the center of attention?
Sure.
And baby cries, I'm going to cry because some attention is good attention.
Sure.
Kind of a deal. So,
It's always
we're
fun for
juggling
mom and
that.
dad.
Yeah.
Well, best advice I can give you, Brian, and I've already given it to you personally, but here on the airwaves, is just to be his buddy.
Be his buddy. And I am, but, it only goes so far.
We invite you to be a part of our online community on Facebook, 515 Fantasy Football, on Twitter, at 515 Fantasy, and online at espndesmoines.com, where you can listen to the show anytime, in addition to iTunes, Stitcher, and on the air at 1350 a.m., ESPN Radio, Des Moines, Iowa. Generally speaking, you can hear the show on the radio Thursdays between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. Brian and I are also contributors to the SleeperBot app. Invite you to download it if you haven't already. We offer instant advice and start-sit answers every Sunday morning leading up to the opening kickoff right there on the app. Got a lot to go over, obviously, in these 2 hours, including your favorite segment, the Pop Quiz, Brian.
Yes.
We'll also be picking bargain bins. Brian and I both pick a quarterback, a running back, and one pass catcher each that chances are available right now on your waiver wire. You can go grab, plug them in this week, and expect a decent amount of fantasy production from. All that, plus we're going to talk fantasy playoffs again, which are upcoming. But first, we want to hit some headlines of fantasy note, beginning in Chicago, where Bears wide receiver Alshon Jeffrey suspended 4 games for violating its PED policy, Brian.
He probably should have shared those with Cutler. Maybe they would have had an increase in production because apparently the PEDs he was using helped none.
Oh, is that right? I didn't read that part.
I would assume that's what he was.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm just guessing.
Who's helped here because of this? Is it Cameron Meredith?
Nobody has helped because Cutler is the situation.
Okay.
If Alshon Jeffrey can't do it and nobody can do it, but my advice is for owners is, hey, this just removed the headache from your lineup of having to start him and him put up 40 yards. You no longer have the stress anymore. So pay attention, find a replacement, and move on.
So the only butthurt essentially are the Bears diehards.
Yeah, those guys.
Running back Jordan Howard denied reports that he suffered an ankle/Achilles injury in Sunday's loss to Tampa Bay. However you slice this, Brian, and whatever the issue happens to be, it sounds like Jordan Howard might be sidelined this weekend, giving way to one Jeremy Langford.
Yeah, that was weird. They came out and reported that, and he was very angry and adamant that he did not receive such an injury.
Bears activated wide receiver Marquise Wilson from the reserve PUP list, somebody to keep an eye on if you're not completely avoiding the Bears offense at this point. Patriots tight end Rob Gronkowski has a chest injury, not a punctured lung as previously reported. He did not practice Wednesday, and I don't know if I even expect to see him this weekend. Do you?
No, I wouldn't imagine with the travel, East Coast, West Coast, and they're playing the Niners. It's not like they need him anyways, so just rest up, big guy.
Could be an upgrade for Martellus Bennett and some of the other pass catchers in that Patriots offense. Running back Deion Lewis was inactive for last Sunday's game. Folks were picking him up left and right thinking that he was going to be active last week and playing. I think they've got a perfectly capable pass-catching back in Deion Lewis, or not Deion Lewis, but James White. What's your take on the Deion Lewis situation?
Well, so you kind of have to understand how it works. The teams only have a certain window to activate players, and once they activate those players, they have 3 weeks to return to the lineup. So if you're a Deion Lewis owner, you may be without him for another 2 weeks. So that's how that works out. So just because they activated him, they just know he's coming back some point in 3 weeks.
Very interesting. That's great intel. The Seahawks released running back Christine Michael, which was a shocker at the time. I don't think anybody saw that coming. The Green Bay Packers have claimed him off of waivers. I think there were only a couple of teams I figured he would end up with. Green Bay was one of those.
Yeah, it made me look like a genius. I heard it this morning, threw it on Twitter. When is Green Bay going to do it? Apparently Mike McCarthy follows me on Twitter, seen it, bam, put in a waiver for him, nailed it.
Yeah. Well, now the question becomes, what of James Starks, who was a pretty hot pickup here in recent weeks? I think Starks is a mediocre talent at best, and I think though he found the end zone last week, he didn't look necessarily great doing it, and I think that Christine Michael, once he gets his hands on that playbook and digs in a little bit, I think he's going to find himself on the field and potentially usurping James Starks as the starting running back.
Yeah, I definitely don't see that as a long shot by any means. Once he gets his sea legs, I mean, especially if you're the Packers, you got to kick the tires on that to see what's out there because your ship is sinking quick.
Yeah, there's no question about that. So Christine Michael, this is why the advice at the time when the Seahawks released him was don't drop Christine Michael yet.
Settle down,
See
people.
where he ends up. That was our advice on Twitter. Speaking of the Packers, running back wide receiver Ty Montgomery was nowhere to be found at practice on Wednesday. He saw his snap counts and his touches go way down last week with the return of James Stark. So
they're going to go down even more.
Sure they are, because they've already got the 3 wide receivers, Jordy Nelson, they've got Adams, and they've got Cobb. So what do they need Montgomery for at all? Yeah. Speaking of Cobb, he was limited at practice yesterday. Even if Cobb can't go, I think it might not be Montgomery. It might be somebody like a Jeff Janis.
Yeah, Montgomery, he's one of those people who never quite lived up to that potential, and it just felt like they were just trying to stick him anywhere they could just so they didn't have to cut him.
Rams will start rookie quarterback Jared Goff versus Miami this week. The Dolphins become an early favorite for streaming defense of the week. Titans running back DeMarco Murray did not practice Wednesday with that toe issue. To me, this sounds like just a Veterans Day off. I think he'll be okay. Lions running back Theo Riddick was limited Wednesday with an ankle injury. I think he'll play this weekend as well. Redskins head coach Jay Gruden suggested running back Matt Jones may continue to be a healthy scratch the rest of this season.
Not surprised at all.
Not me either. You heard all the trash I was talking about Matt Jones all year long and how painful it was that I was at one time an owner of his.
You were an owner.
Begrudgingly, I might add. Jets head coach Todd Bowles declined to name a starting quarterback on Monday. What does this mean? Is he going to go to Petty or is he going to stick with Ryan Fitzpatrick? Does it even matter?
It doesn't matter at this point because neither should be on your roster.
The Falcons expect running back Tevin Coleman back in the lineup following their Week 11 bye, which is great news for him. Bad news for Devontae Freeman owners who have sort of enjoyed that backfield all to themselves here for a few weeks. Cardinals head coach Bruce Get Off My Lawn Arians said wide receiver Larry Fitzgerald is just sore, but hopefully will practice this week and should be ready for Sunday's game against Minnesota. He has not yet practiced this week, FYI. Arians also said cornerback Patrick Peterson will shadow Vikings wide receiver Stephon Diggs on Sunday, which is a nice piece of intel. Vikings released kicker Blair Walsh, signed kicker Kai Forbath to a contract, who actually is less accurate than Blair Walsh has been throughout his career. So we'll see how that goes. Bills head coach Rex Ryan says wide receiver Percy Harvin will be more than just a decoy. I don't believe it. Do you?
Nope, I don't believe anything he says anymore. He's terrible.
Unless he tells you that he really, really loves feet.
Yeah.
Then you might believe that.
I've seen the video.
So gross. Cowboys quarterback Tony Romo suffered a setback. I put that in quotes.
Yeah,
by the way,
right.
During rehab, he's unavailable for at least another week. Now, Tony did come out, have a little weepy press conference about the fact that it's Dak's team now going forward, and he's there to support him. Blah blah blah. It'll be interesting to see what happens to Tony Romo in the offseason.
Yeah, it was funny how they announced his setback just after the win.
Yep. I know.
Oh, how convenient.
You knew that was going to happen. Now, if something happens to Dak Prescott, it's a miracle.
Yeah.
Tony Romo's better.
I got some stem cells, man. We're ready to go.
I think Jay Cutler went through a similar situation in Chicago, didn't he? Chiefs wide receiver Jeremy Maclin did not practice on Wednesday, so again, that brings somebody like a Tyreek Hill into play. Nor did Eagles wide receiver Jordan Matthews, and that would certainly be a big loss for that Eagles offense because really, I mean, who else do they have that they can count on?
Yeah,
they certainly aren't counting on.
time.
They're not counting on Bryce Treggs, are they? We'll talk more about that later.
Yeah.
But we're going to get right into the matchups here. 4 of them coming at you next on the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show, heard each and every Thursday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on 1350 a.m. ESPN Radio in Des Moines, Iowa. You can also get the show on iTunes, on Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. I'm Andy Hall. That's Brian Eikenberry. Right into the Week 11 matchups. We begin with Thursday Night Football. I have the honors. It is New Orleans at Carolina. We'll start with the Saints. Quarterback Drew Brees, an A grade, threw for an incredible 465 yards back in Week 6 against these Panthers, along with 4 touchdowns with only 1 INT. And while I don't believe it'll be that massive on Sunday afternoon on the road, you should have zero worry about plugging him in for the start. Mark Ingram, a B-. This is not a good matchup for Saints runners in general. Carolina ranks second in yards allowed, only 3.4 yards per carry, 4 total touchdowns scored by opposing runners all season long. For that reason, I'm leaving Tim Hightower on the bench. Brandon Cooks, an A grade, caught 7 passes for 173 yards and a touchdown the last time these teams met last month, and caught 6 passes for 104 and a touchdown late last season against the Panthers as well, so I love him. Michael Thomas, a B grade, chipped in 5 receptions of his own back in October for 78 yards and a touchdown, has not had less than 44 yards receiving in any one game in his rookie season with a high water mark of 130 yards back in Week 7. Gotta love that. Willie Snead, a C+, a non-factor against these Panthers in Week 6. Snead scored twice in Week 10, which were his first touchdowns since Week 2. A lot of mouths to feed in that Saints offense. I think Cooks and Thomas are the top 2 options again this week. Fleener, a sneaky possibility as the third pass-catching option for Breeze. I'm giving him a B grade. Did find the end zone in Week 6 against Carolina while chipping in 6 receptions for 74 yards and the rare rushing touchdown as well if you missed that. Should be plenty involved again here as the Panthers allow the 3rd most production in the league to opposing tight ends. Over to the Panthers, quarterback Cam Newton in A grade. He's averaging 35.5 fantasy points per game over his last 4 against the Saints, who are bad against the pass, very mediocre against opposing runners. Newton possesses both skill sets. I see no reason why he can't, at the very least, match his Week 6 output where he threw for 322 yards and 2 scores. He also ran one in. Jonathan Stewart, a B+. The Saints have allowed the 3rd most rushing touchdowns in the league, a total of 12 through 9 games. Stewart's averaging only 3.6 yards per carry on the season, but has scored 4 touchdowns in 6 games played. He should be good for at least 1 in this matchup after scoring 2 against New Orleans earlier this season. Kelvin Benjamin, a B+. 8 receptions, 86 yards the last time these teams met. Benjamin continues to be targeted plenty, especially in closely contested, high-scoring affairs like Week 6 was, and Benjamin saw 14 targets. Ted Ginn, a C+. Didn't do an awful lot in the last head-to-head, but did find the end zone against these Saints in December of last season. A dart throw to be sure, but that guy's got some home run capabilities, so you have to at least consider him. Greg Olsen, he gets an A grade, has been lights out against New Orleans lately. In his last 4 meetings against the Saints, he's gone 10 for 72 and 1 touchdown, 8 for 134 and 2 touchdowns, 9 for 129 and 6 for 94. A virtual lock for tight end 1 production this week.
All right, on to the Steelers-Browns. Quarterback Ben Roethlisberger, you don't need me to tell you here. He's going to get a B+. There is a risk he only passes a few times in the second half, but I would expect a statement win in the division here. He has 21 total touchdowns through his 8 games. I don't foresee this being an issue for Big Ben. Running back Le'Veon Bell, he's going to get the A here. The Browns have the second worst rush defense, so expect Bell to get plenty of work and score big. He's averaging over 4 yards per carry, has 360 yards receiving thus far, so expect good things. Oh, and by the way, DeAngelo Williams is out, so he is the only one standing back there. I could see 25, 30 carries for this guy.
No question.
Oh, it's going to be ridiculous. Glad I do not play against him this week.
Me neither.
Wide receiver Antonio Brown, he's going to get an A. Every time he's on the field, regardless, he will get an A. Wide receiver Sammy Coates, he's going to get a C. The rookie failed to earn his regular spot, so he is used sparingly. With the other matchups in favor, I don't see a big game here. Wide receiver Eli Rogers is going to get a B. In the event the Browns don't roll over Sammy Coates here, I like Eli Rogers. He could get some decent work here again, and he doesn't get much time out there, but with DHB out,
listen, he's running those routes out of the slot. I think Eli Rogers, he was one of my favorite pickups this week, for sure.
Quarterback Cody Kessler is going to get a B- on the Brown side. Here we go. Sorry, I even skipped over your boy Jesse James. Bang, bang.
Doesn't really matter.
No, it doesn't really matter. Quarterback Cody Kessler, B-. I thought Kessler was terrible until I looked at the numbers. 66% completion rate, 6-to-1 touchdown ratio. That's pretty sweet considering the situation and the team he's on. Maybe Kessler is the future here in Cleveland.
Could be.
Or Tony Romo.
That's interesting.
Running back Isaiah Crowell is going to get a C+. Steelers and Duke Johnson, he's going to get a C. I'm just going to lump these guys together. Steelers are middle of the road run defense, and with game flow likely being an issue, I don't see much of the Crows a factor this week. I would expect the passing downs to come in the second half to Duke Johnson. Browns average under 100 yards per game rushing, and they're going to be playing from behind. Corey Coleman, Terrell Pryor, both are going to get a B here. Corey Coleman's volume through 4 games, he's averaging 17 yards per catch, and is typically more of the downfield threat here. He has about 5 more yards per catch, so that kind of gives us a little bit of insight in the play calling. Terrell Pryor, he has 12.3 yards per catch. So you can see the difference between these two and 4 touchdowns. 5 yards per catch is a pretty big difference to me, to kind of pick and choose who you want your receiver to be. Andrew Hawkins, C-. Tight end Gary Barnett is going to get a B+ here. Biggest letdown of the year in the tight end category, especially for us. He's been hell of the end zone this far, but I could see him scoring against the Steelers as they give up a decent amount to tight ends.
Baltimore at Dallas for the Ravens. Joe Flacco, a C+. Had a so-so Week 10 against the league's 31st ranked pass defense, the Browns. This week on the road in Dallas, who ranked 20th and have allowed 10 less passing scores. Overall, he's been awfully disappointing on the season, even in what appeared to be excellent matchups. Chances are nobody's considering him this week, so you can pretty much skip. I could have skipped right over that.
You could.
Yeah, I could have. Terrence West, a C grade. The Cowboys have given up the 3rd fewest rushing yards in the league, averaging only about 82.5 yards per game given up, a 4.1 yards per carry clip, and have allowed only 4 scores all year to opposing running backs. West may still be the lead back there in Baltimore, but I don't believe he'll find much room to run on Sunday. Kenneth Dixon, I'm leaving on the bench. He may mix in. Saw only 8 less snaps than West in Week 10, but 11 less touches. West clearly still treated as the lead back in this offense. Steve Smith, a B-. The ageless wonder, saw 7 targets, reeled in 5 receptions for 60 yards and a score in Week 10. Still the Ravens' best bet of all the pass catchers. He's flex-worthy despite the tough matchup. Mike Wallace, a C grade, seen a sharp decline in targets and production in the last month, and though he may see an uptick in both this week due to game script, cross your fingers and say a prayer if you do decide to plug him into your lineup. Brashad Perryman, I'll throw a desperation C at as well. He hit pay dirt for the first time last week, but his production week to week simply cannot be trusted yet. Dennis Pitta, a C+. Even when he was seeing double-digit targets, he was doing very little with them. Has yet to reach the end zone this season, and though the Cowboys are a mediocre defense against opposing tight ends, you'd have to be pretty desperate to count on Pitta in your starting lineup this week. For the Cowboys, Dak Prescott, a B grade. Baltimore's got a really solid defense. They're ranked 4th in yards allowed via the air, only 210 per game. They've given up 16 touchdowns while intercepting 11 opposing passes on the season. Prescott has enough weapons around him to not have to rely on either the pass nor the run, so I'm not too concerned he'll have a decent game here. Has passed for multiple touchdowns in 5 of his last 6 games. That streak may end this week. Ezekiel Elliott, I'm giving a B+2. He's an A grade against nearly the entire league at this point, but against the Ravens, I'm tempering him just a bit. They're currently the stingiest defense in the NFL, allowing the least amount of yards, only 3.3 yards per carry, and the least rushing scores as well. Elliott has performed well against defenses in the upper echelon more than once this season, so I think he's still a good start, but don't expect what you saw last week here. Des Bryant, a B+. We'll likely see a lot of Jimmy Smith, who's been incredibly good in coverage, but from what we've seen of the growing chemistry between Des and Dak, not to mention the size and strength advantage, this feels like a solid game forthcoming for number 88. Cole Beasley, a C+. Tough matchup. Beasley, though, he benefits from running the majority of his routes from the slot, the one place the Ravens have shown some susceptibility from time to time. And Jason Witten, I'm leaving on the bench. Baltimore is a brutal matchup for opposing tight ends. The aging Witten, not a great start this week, trust me.
Jacksonville, Detroit, quarterback Blake Bortles is going to get a C+. The Jags have only had the lead one time in the last 5 games, if you can believe it or not. That's terrible.
I do believe it, actually.
And it's probably they had the ball in the first drive and kicked a field goal. That was probably it. Did you also know that he has a higher average points per game? I've seen this crazy statistic in the last few games or whatever, higher than Cam Newton, which is unbelievable. But it's because of garbage time.
There you go.
That's
yeah, he's
all
the
it
king.
is.
He is the king of garbage time. I actually have a nickname for Blake Bortles. I'll share it later.
Okay. Well, he also has 11 interceptions, not very many touchdowns, so just move on from Bortles if you can in this matchup. Running back Chris Ivory, I'm going to give him a B. I think Ivory has a chance at a touchdown this week against the Lions run defense that tends to give up those goal line touchdowns. While Ivory may not be the best, he is over 4 yards per carry, so expect more of the same. TJ Yeldon's going to get a C+. Hasn't been able to do much of anything, likely a game flow issue throughout his little year here, that he was a big letdown. I know people were high on him, but I wasn't. Even when Ivory was out, he failed to capitalize. Allen Robinson, B-, 549 and 5 here. Someone's got to catch the ball. Slay is back and healthy now, so that's an issue for Allen Robinson. Allen Hurns is going to get a C. He's 456 and 2, one of my big letdowns, but I see him as losing valuable targets to someone like Marquise Lee. He's out there. He's stealing those targets, not the touchdowns. He has 490 yards. So any of these receivers outside Allen Robinson's a dangerous threat. Julius Thomas, he's going to get a B+. He's actually been picking up some touchdowns recently, and the Lions like to give up a ton of those to tight ends. On the Lions side of the ball, quarterback Matt Stafford, he's going to get an A. Coming off the bye week, first place, trying to win a game without having to do it on the last drive of the game. Hopefully they can do it against the Jags. If they do it, they prove themselves to be worthy of the number 1 spot in the NFC North there. Theo Riddick, as you mentioned, has the ankle issue. I expect him to go. He's going to get a B. I'm going to cruise through these receivers here real quick. This is kind of obvious. Golden Tate, B+, Marvin Jones, B. Tate's going to have the better game here. He's averaging 10 yards per catch, so he has a whole bunch of volume that's on his side. Over the last few games, he has 400 yards and 2 touchdowns, so he's been doing good since his benching. Marvin Jones has cooled off because defenses are figuring out how to cover him. Still has 18 yards per catch. Ebron's going to get a B-, 170 yards in 2 games. I like his yardage, and he may snag a TD this week. Who knows?
Coming up, I've got a matchup where I'm handing out more A grades than I think I ever have in the history of this show.
Oh, geez.
I've got 6 A grades on my next matchup.
So defense is not the issue.
No, there will be little to no defense in this next game that I'm about to tell you about. Plenty still to come. A Week 11 edition of the 515 Fantasy Football Show. As always, you're hearing it on 1350 AM, ESPN Radio, Des Moines, Iowa. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM, ESPN Radio, Des Moines, Iowa. We're also on iTunes, on Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. I'm Andy Hall. That's Brian Eikenberry. Invite you to rate and review the show on iTunes. Maybe you subscribe to us, and maybe we've given you some good information over the course of time. Maybe you actually do trust us with your fantasy lineup. We appreciate the kind compliments, the kind words, but ratings and reviews are great on iTunes because they help out with visibility. More people can find us that way, Brian.
Yeah, and if you're on your phone listening to us through that way, it's just a click of a button. Click, click, you've rated and reviewed us, and you can type in awesome, and you're good to go, and we'd appreciate it very much.
We love you long time.
Yep.
So this next matchup, this is more A grades than I've ever given out in the history of this show. The matchup is Tennessee-Indianapolis. We start with the Titans. Marcus Mariota is an A grade. It was a great week to start it's a great week to start as many Titans as you can think of off the top of your head. Indy's defense is awful. Against the pass, they ranked 26th with 17 passing touchdowns allowed, only 3 INTs on the season. Against the run, they ranked 22nd with 4.7 yards per carry allowed on average, a total of 7 rushing scores given up this season. A grades across the board, Brian. DeMarco Murray, an A grade, 25 carries for 107 yards and a touchdown the last time these teams met, less than a month ago. Rashard Matthews, I'm giving an A grade to. No pass catcher in the NFL has seen the end zone more than Matthews over the past 6 weeks. And Delaney Walker, I'm giving an A grade to. No brainer. Easily the most underrated tight end, I think, of all time. What do you think of that?
Well, yeah, I mean, that was something we talked about early on when we were talking about last year's target leaders, and he kept coming up at the top of the list.
That's right. Kendall Wright, I'm going to give a B grade to because much of the receiving production goes to Matthews and Walker. Temper Wright a bit, though he does have the potential to hit a home run now and again. Tajay Sharp, a C grade. Down the pecking order, Sharp's chances will be few and far between. But that said, in a shootout, as this game can turn out to be, everyone's in play to some extent. Now we move over to the Colts and Andrew Luck, another A grade. High volume game as the Colts likely won't be able to do much on the ground. I see a potentially high scoring affair like last month's head-to-head was. Luck threw for 353 yards and 3 scores in that matchup. He's a great start. Frank Gore, a C+. The Highlander hit pay dirt via the air when these two teams met a few weeks ago. I think if you're hoping for a score this week, it's likely to be in the same fashion. The Titans are very good at stopping the run, allowing only 4.3 yards per carry this season. T.Y. Hilton, here's another A grade. 7 grabs, 133 yards, and a touchdown in the last head-to-head. Absolute no-brainer start. Dante Moncrief, a B+. The Titans haven't seen him yet this season. I don't think they'll forget his name as they'll be seeing the back of his jersey a lot this week as he blows by the secondary on his way to touchdowns.
What was his name again?
Dante Moncrief.
Pokemon Creef.
Well, that's the nickname, of course, but they're going to be seeing his name a lot because he's going to be running away from the secondary.
Good grief, Moncrief.
Tight end Jack Doyle, a B-. He caught 9 Andrew Luck passes for 78 yards and a touchdown a few weeks ago. Should continue to be plenty involved in the offense, as tight ends always are. The Titans allow the 8th most fantasy points to the position on the season.
All right, well, that means it's my turn, and I was not prepared here. So, all right, we're caught up. Bills at Bengals here. Quarterback Tyrod Taylor's going to get a B. Bengals are middle of the road, but Tyrod is short on pass catchers, so that's what gives me a little scared. I'd love to give him a higher grade. Giving him the average grade because the Bengals aren't good, and that's the reality of their situation. He's a threat with his legs, and he can score from anywhere on the field. He has 14 total touchdowns and minimal turnovers. Running back LaShawn McCoy is going to get a big ol' A here. Bengals are terrible on the ground, giving up 116. They're the 24th worst run defense. That should easily help McCoy pad his stats as he shockingly has 680 yards. I thought he had more. Just kind of a knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah, but he wasn't healthy for all of it. So,
yeah.
I mean, that was part of the issue, and then he missed some time, and Mike Gillislee came in and did nothing. So.
Well, he could get 200 this week, so I wouldn't doubt it.
He might.
As we mentioned, the one and only Percy Harvin, he's going to be more than a decoy. I say he is on your bench. Please do not fall for the Percy Harvin gig. Wide receiver Robert Woods is going to get a B. Leading target monster and will get plenty. He is questionable, but he has to go. They don't have a choice here. Marquise Goodwin, C+. Aside from the occasional breakaway, he has 16 catches and 300 yards. And tight end Charles Clay, he only has 333 catches, gets minimal yardage. Look elsewhere in the tight end category as well. On the Bengals side, quarterback Andy Dalton is going to get a B. The Red Rocket needs to save his head coach's job this year. Yeah, I'm calling it. What are they like? They're 4-5-1, right?
Yeah, you think Marvin Lewis's head's on the chopping block, huh?
Yeah. I think Marvin Lewis is going to get axed here at the end of the season. Bills are 11th against the pass, and Dalton only has 10 touchdowns this year. So they're just performing bad everywhere. If you're still waiting on him to break away, you likely have 3 wins on your fantasy football season. Running back Giovanni Bernard and Jeremy Hill, I tie these guys together. They're both going to get a B-. Virtually tied in combined yardage. These two are situational at best, and it's a toss-up. Either start both or none at all. The Bills give up yardage, and I always tip my hat to Gio because I think he is the better runner. Hill will get the goal line work and the potential for a TD if they can get that close. Wide receiver A.J. Green's going to get a B+. Top-notch receiver with 1,000 yards and his 4 touchdowns are a little disheartening. But he's going to get the action because he's the only real pass catcher or wide receiver on the Bengals that's worth grabbing since he nearly triples everyone else's production in the wide receiver category.
That's what happens when Brandon LaFell is your second wide receiver.
Yeah, that's the bad part is LaFell, C-. I gave up on LaFell a week after Eifert came back. If Eifert does get scratched here before game time because he's technically questionable, I would slide in LaFell.
He's playing. Eifert's playing. You're not gonna have to worry
you
about
have
it.
to, but just in case, you never know. Tyler Boyd's going to get a C. The young rook is still learning and should only be considered in dire emergencies. Eifert's going to get a B. He gets plenty of targets as the number 2 receiver on this Bengals team.
Tampa Bay at Kansas City, first the Bucks. Jameis Winston, a B grade. The Chiefs aren't terrible in pass coverage. In fact, they lead the league in INTs. The issue with them this season has been that they're too risky at times, and opposing quarterbacks have been able to exploit them from time to time for long scores. There's also the fact that they're the league's 27th ranked rush defense. Winston can hurt a defense with his legs. Doug Martin, I'm going to give him a B grade. I'm going to be a lot of questions about Doug Martin this week, I think. After seeing the usage last week, yes, he scored, but he really wasn't used in sort of a workhorse capacity like we saw with Jacquizz Rodgers, who had like 35 touches a couple of weeks in a row. Yet Kansas City gives up 4.7 yards per carry, nearly 122 yards per game to opposing runners. They've done a good job of keeping most of them out of the end zone, allowing only 4 rushing scores on the season, but Martin is likely a high-volume guy here, and there is upside if he hits 20 or more touches. I think there is a possibility this week of
Can I
that.
make a bold prediction?
Do it.
If the muscle hamster does not have a good performance when Jacquizz Rodgers comes out of that boot, it's his job.
I read a report that he shed the boot, so he's no longer in the boot, but we don't know if that means that he'll be ready to practice anytime soon.
I hope so, because I own him.
Oh, well, there you have it. You actually held on to him.
Yeah,
So
of course I did.
That's
Getting
impressive.
ready for the playoffs.
Yeah, there you have it. Mike Evans, a B+. As good as the Chiefs can be at times in the secondary, they've also been torched by several opposing number 1 wide receivers like Evans this season, leading me to believe he could be in for a big game with at least one long score. Adam Humphries, a C grade, the clear-cut 4th option for Winston after Evans, Martin, and Brate. Humphries benefits from running most of his routes out of the slot, a position the Chiefs' D-backs have had some trouble with this season. Cameron Brate, I mentioned, he gets a B-. When the Bucs get into the red zone, it's almost a given that either Evans or Brate will get at least one shot at a score. For Brate, that formula has worked out extremely well as of late, hitting pay dirt in his last 3 games. The Chiefs have typically been very good against opposing tight ends on the season, but it's difficult to bench Brate considering how hot he has been. I guess you could say Brate has been pretty great, Brian.
Ooh, that's special.
As I was reading, I was like, Brate is great.
Oh, look at you.
Making America Brate again.
Making America great again.
Now over to the Chiefs side, Alex Smith, a B+. Truth be told, I was tempted to make him my bargain bin this week at the quarterback position. Tampa has been dreadful against the pass this season, allowing the 11th most passing yards per game, the 4th most passing touchdowns on the season. Regardless of whether or not Jeremy Maclin is able to go this weekend, Smith a decent option despite his limited ceiling. Spencer Ware, a B grade. Tampa below average run-stopping unit in 2016, allowing the 8th most yards to opposing backs, but they've yielded only 8 scores via the ground this season. The longest run they've given up, only 28 yards. Ware needs volume to succeed, and I think he'll probably get it, considering the lack of receivers for the Chiefs potentially here. Tyreek Hill, a B grade. You already know Tampa's a good matchup for opposing pass catchers. We'll talk more in depth about Hill a little later on. Albert Wilson, a C grade, saw an uptick in targets in Maclin's absence as expected, but he did literally nothing with the opportunities and remains nothing more than a desperation play for Chiefs diehards. Travis Kelce, an A grade. The Bucs are about as mediocre against tight ends as they are virtually everyone else on defense. Kelce is a solid target for tight end 1 production this week. Coming up, more matchups, including what to do with Todd Gurley. Why are we even talking about Todd Gurley? Is he a complete bust at this point? Brian and I will have it out.
As usual.
We'll talk about it in depth shortly. Don't forget, Pop Quiz is still to come. The bargain bin picks near the end of the show. And I didn't even mention at the top, the 515 Fantasy Flea Flicker, Brian's brainchild. That's how we're going to wrap up this week's show. Thank you for listening. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. You are listening to the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio, Des Moines, Iowa. I'm Andy Hall. That's Brian Eikenberry. You can also get the show on iTunes, on Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. We appreciate you no matter where you have found us or how you have found us. Maybe it was through the SleeperBot app, where Brian and I contribute on a daily/weekly basis. Those Sunday mornings are always fun because we're in rapid-fire fashion answering start-sit questions there on the app in the podcast section. Hit us up there anytime or via Twitter at 515fantasy. I'm at Andy Hall Radio. He's at IkeFFB. That's IKEFFB. We're back into those matchups, Brian, with the Bears and the Giants.
Woo-wee! Quarterback Jay Cutler for the Bears. Bench. Yuck. Now he doesn't have Alshon. Guilty of starting Jay Cutler last week, and I won in my fantasy football.
That's
matchup.
a miracle.
That was awesome. So I'm probably the only guy who won with Cutler at any point in time this year. Over to the running backs, you got Jordan Howard, you got Jeremy Langford. Who knows what's going to happen? But you know what? The Giants are a top 10 run defense, so it's very scary leaning into either one of these guys at this point, and they're probably going to have to abandon the run early. So you don't know who's going to get the ball from A to B anymore. Let's go down the receivers. Why not? Josh Bellamy? That name ring a bell?
Who cares?
Yeah. Eddie Royal.
He's been invisible.
Yeah, and Cameron Meredith.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if there's one guy that's going to pick up the slack, it might be him.
Strike 3 and you're out, I guess, for me. The only reason he scored last week was because of a 50-yard Hail Mary at the end of the half that got bumped into him.
Tapped right to him.
Other than that, he would have had nothing too. So
True.
It is a very dangerous situation. The only one who got a non-C or failing grade was Zach Miller. He got a B-. He's the only bright spot right now on this roster. Cutler's going to have to push the ball, and he's the only one who has probably the reliability to catch the passes. So I would avoid it at all costs unless you're going to go with Zach Miller. On the Giants side of the ball, quarterback Eli Manning, a B. Should be able to get some points here. Should be able to get movement early. But while the Bears have that decent defense, I believe in attitude of the team, so the Bears might just be kind of sloughing off at the end. So I'm guessing Eli's going to get a B. I don't think they're going to come out gunslingers, but who knows? Rashad Jennings, B-. Paul Perkins is a C. Technically, Jennings is top of the depth chart, but I don't see any Giants running back really making a big difference here. The Bears are 11th against the run, and the Giants are 31st run offense. So it's kind of a disaster waiting to happen. Wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr., he's going to get the A. Managed to scrounge up 80 or more and a touchdown at this point last week. So in every game, he's been doing just fine. So no reason to doubt him here again. He's probably going to do the same. 80 and a touchdown, maybe even 150 and 2 touchdowns at this point.
We'll see. You never know.
Wide receiver Sterling Shepard, he's going to get a B-. Here's where it kind of gets harder to pick out of these guys. If Cruz goes, I like Shepard, believe it or not. If he's without Cruz, I'm going to pass. Shepard does a bit better when Cruz is out there pulling a little bit more coverage away from him. So typically it's one of those things where the third man's out, you like the wider 2 receiver. Kind of opposite here on the Giants roster. He has 426 and 4 touchdowns. Victor Cruz, he's going to get a C. Nearly impossible to get a touchdown out of the guy, and it pretty much has to be a fluke, so you can't really count on him anymore. And there's no real tight end.
What about Will Tye? Will Tye?
Will Tye, God,
he gets all the snaps. Larry Donnell's out. I mean, he stands on the sidelines now, so it's all Will Tye all the time.
But I tried real hard to get that many words out of this matchup.
Come on, man. Don't you remember the last time I said, hey, what about this tight end? It was Jason Witten. He had a pretty good game.
No, let's not even start there. You
Will
and the
Tye.
one guy on Twitter.
Will Tye. All right, Arizona at Minnesota. Start with the Cardinals. Carson Palmer, a C+. The Vikings rank 5th against the pass in yards allowed, giving up an average of only 212 yards per game. They've given up 10 touchdown passes on the season while intercepting 10 enemy passes. The key is to get pressure on Palmer, who isn't exactly known for his mobility nor his accuracy under pressure. Arizona likely goes with a run-heavy script here, considering Fitzgerald's and Floyd's health and the fact that David Johnson's been absolutely lights out this season. Noteworthy that he did throw for over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns in last year's meeting in Glendale. Speaking of David Johnson, he's an easy A grade. In that November matchup last season, Johnson had 123 combo yards, though he didn't reach the end zone. This time around, he'll see a banged-up Minnesota front seven that has been gashed for big yardage in the past month by Rob Kelly, Jordan Howard, Theo Riddick, and Ryan Matthews. Despite the fact that this appears on paper to be a difficult matchup, Johnson is one of the rare running backs that's virtually matchup-proof, so I like him either way. Larry Fitzgerald, a B-, a homecoming of sorts. Fitzgerald hasn't scored against Minnesota since 2009. He's listed as questionable with that knee injury that left him plenty sore after last week's game. On the table getting that MRI on Monday. He's been great this season, but likely sees a lot of corner Xavier Rhodes this week, which doesn't bode well for his chances. John Brown, a C+, virtually invisible last week. Brown should be seen as nothing more than a dart throw in the flex spot. You're banking on a long TD if you start him, which is never a good bet against a defense like Minnesota. Michael Floyd, a C grade, had his first 100-yard game of the season last Sunday, but got a bit banged up in the process. The other native Minnesotan in the Arizona receiving core should be plenty busy this week if he's healthy enough to play, but his inconsistency makes him tough to trust. Now on to the Vikings. Sam Bradford, a C grade. The Cardinals have allowed the least passing yards in the entire league through 9 games, an average of only 195 yards per game. They've given up the least amount of passing touchdowns with 6, have 9 interceptions, 24 sacks on the season. Bradford and his ragtag offensive line have their work cut out for them this weekend, no question. Jerick McKinnon, I'm leaving on the bench. Arizona gives up about 3.8 yards per carry on average. McKinnon may get the majority of the backfield work Sunday, but I don't see how he can possibly succeed considering the O-line issues. Matt Asiata, a C grade. Desperation play here. You're hoping the Vikings get down inside the 5-yard line where Asiata does make his hay. Ronnie Hillman on the bench. By the numbers, it's he that should be leading the Minnesota backfield, but for whatever reason, the Vikings coaching staff disagrees with my astute observation. Gives him a carry here, a carry there, a reception here, a reception there. Nothing to see here yet. Stephon Diggs, a B-. Target monster. Diggs is the recipient of lots of quick 3-step drops by Bradford. What he's able to do in space gets him the numbers we've been seeing recently, but if reports are true that Patrick Peterson will be shadowing him, I'm tempering my expectations a bit. Adam Thielen, a C+, looking like Minnesota's number 2. Thielen doesn't offer enough upside to expect anything big from him in a matchup like this, though if you're absolutely desperate, he does see his fair share of red zone targets, could see the end zone. In that respect, he's viable as a flex, especially with word that Diggs will be shadowed. I'm not going so far as to advocate starting Cordero Patterson. Kyle Rudolph, however, a C+. The Cardinals are the most brutal matchup for opposing tight ends. They allow less than 3 receptions per game to the position for an average of about 27 yards receiving. They've given up 0 touchdowns this year.
It's crazy, isn't it? Would you be mad if the Vikings signed Tony Romo at this point?
No.
I mean, giving up on everything that they gave up to get Bradford.
Nope, because there's no guarantee Bridgewater even is able to come back from what he suffered earlier this season.
Right.
So I'd be okay with Romo. Sure.
Okay.
Why not?
Good luck.
Thanks.
Quarterback, hey, we're doing the Dolphins-Rams now. Quarterback Ryan Tannehill, B-. Making the trip to Hollywood, Tannehill has a shot. Feels like I say that a lot about him. Rams are 8th against the pass, and Tannehill is 28th in passing offense. So if you must, it's a start and a prayer. Running back Jay Ajayi is going to get a B. Rams give up 103 on the ground, and Ajayi should be able to do that no problem. He's up and down most times, so check this. Everyone's super high on Ajayi. He has 700 yards on the season. But remember, 2 games was worth over 400.
Sure.
So when you kind of put those together, ooh, wait a second, maybe not good to go. I like his chances here as the Rams won't be scoring too much, and he should get 25 carries. Wide receiver Jarvis Landry is going to get a B. Landry is consistent and does punts. He has 650 yards and a touch, but touchdowns are a concern. Safer bet in the bargain bin this week, I guarantee it. Kenny Stills is going to get a C+. Big playability, and that's it. Less than 20 catches, but 4 touchdowns, so he averages a TD per 5 catches. If you're looking at it for a positive spin, Devontae Parker is going to get a B-. He has twice as many catches as Kenny Stills does, but nearly the same yardage and 3 less touchdowns. So he is the steady option there in the yardage category. On to the Los Angeles Rams, the debut of one quarterback, Jared Goff. That means the Rams are out of playoff contention. Go ahead and leave him on the bench. You have no idea what's going to happen. It could be 170 yards and 4 interceptions for all we know. Running back Todd Gurley is going to get a B-. Gurley isn't Gurley this year. Should be touching the ball about 30 times a game. But he's averaging 16 touches per game, which is absurd. Kenny Britt B, Tavon Austin C. Same story, different week. Start at your own risk, but I wouldn't touch anyone this week, especially with Goff back there. So you might want to reconsider your options if you're especially looking at history as for your numbers. Tight end Lance Kendricks, B-. A viable option if you need someone. Tight end is a rookie's quarterback best friend here, especially if the Rams won't let him fire down range at all.
Yeah, that's a good call. And Kendricks might be the only guy I would consider this week. I mentioned earlier, Miami Dolphins defense and special teams, a great streamer option this week. I know we don't talk DSTs an awful lot on the show. We don't talk kickers either for obvious reasons, but I did mention Blair Walsh got released by the Vikings, I guess, so we kind of covered that sort of, didn't we? Well, I mean, had anybody gotten cut, I would have probably reported on that. Doing my job, journalism.
Good job.
The pop quiz is next. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show. Stick around. Hour number 2, the 515 Fantasy Football Show, Week 11 edition. You're hearing it on 1350 AM, ESPN Radio, Des Moines, Iowa, or on iTunes, or on Stitcher, or online at espndesmoines.com. We don't care where you found us. The fact is, you're here, and that means a lot that you're spending some time with us, even if it's just to tune into fun segments like the pop quiz. And believe me, it is everybody's favorite segment, except for Brian.
It is my favorite. You just grade terrible.
That's what you say. Now, the deal with the pop quiz, I write the questions. I don't give Brian any advance notice what they're going to be. And I believe in Brian. See, that's the thing about this pop quiz. I believe in you, Brian.
Well, that's cute.
And I think you should. You have the ability to get all of these right because you're a brilliant.
Sometimes I'm just defiant and don't.
And I love how you cut me off right as I'm about to compliment you.
Yeah.
So now I'm just going to take it back. All right. 3 questions. Actually, 4 this week. I'm throwing a bonus at you.
You get a bonus.
So, bonus question this week. So are you ready for the first question?
Let's do it.
All right. Since week 5, no quarterback has scored more fantasy points than the Titans' Marcus Mariota. He's averaging 29.5 per game, currently ranks number 4 in fantasy scoring overall. Does Mariota finish the season top 5 in fantasy scoring?
Without looking at the schedule, I will say yes. Based on history is our guidance at this point. If you remember preseason, I said the Titans they're the sneaky team this year. If that offense clicks, Mario is going to be scary good. And they've clicked, and they are being scary good. No one's seen this coming. Except us. But, I think so. I mean, he's playing lights out. It's not like he's been playing like this for 2 weeks now. He's been playing with this for what, 5-6 weeks now?
Yeah. So, for me, it wasn't so much Mariota in the passing game. For me, it was the running game.
Yeah.
And to see what DeMarco Murray has been able to accomplish this season with a new team is pretty remarkable. And I was talking about it back in the preseason that I was like, something sneaky's going on here. And I think you were the same with that passing game. I wasn't quite as high on it as you were, but the running game most certainly, and we've seen that with the Titans offense. Anyway, the answer to the question is obviously no.
Oh, jeez.
He has an incredibly difficult schedule upcoming.
I said without looking at the schedule.
After facing Indy this week, who, by the way, ranked 26th against the pass, so it is a good matchup. But in the coming weeks, he gets the Bears in Week 12. They're ranked 12th. The Broncos in Week 14, they're ranked 6th. The Chiefs in Week 15, they're ranked 13th. Jags in Week 16, surprisingly, they're ranked 3rd against the pass.
Which is a BS stat at this point.
I don't think that's a BS stat at all, actually. All you have to do is look at the numbers, Brian.
Well, but you have to look past the numbers because numbers tell a story but not the whole truth. You know why they're that bad? Why they're that good against the pass? It's
because because teams are running the ball against
because
them.
Teams are just running so much now.
Well, that's part of it, yes, but they're also kind of a shutdown defense
I don't like
at
your
this
answer.
point. Texans in Week 17, they're 2nd against the pass. Following the Week 13 bye, those defenses give up an average of less than 210 passing yards combined, an average of less than 1 passing touchdown per game. It's more likely to see an Andrew Luck, a Dak Prescott, or a Derek Carr up in the top 5 than Mariota, considering that brutal stretch, Brian.
I'll bet on the Hawaiian.
You're 0 for 1. Number 2. After amassing... Oh, I'm sorry. Do you want to continue? Do you need a safe space, Brian?
Yeah.
Do you want to go cry into a pillow?
I do.
Can I get you a puppy? Anything?
I would take a puppy.
How do you handle loss, by the way? Do you handle loss okay?
I discredit anything you say.
You want a safe space? Is that what you want?
Yes.
You're not a millennial, it should be pointed out. After amassing 36 touches for a combined 174 yards over weeks 8 and 9, Eagles head coach Doug Peterson named running back Darren Sproles his starter going forward. And then week 10 happened.
Yeah, garbage, dude.
Where Sproles took a backseat to Ryan Matthews, who had 21 touches for a combined 139 yards, 2 touchdowns, leaving Sproles with scraps, 10 touches for a combined 76 yards. Can you trust any Eagles runner near your starting lineup the rest of the season, Brian?
I'll cover it in my matchup, but no. This is Rex Ryan, like, part 2, man.
Are they trolling the fantasy community? Do NFL coaches care enough to troll the fantasy community?
I will tell you this.
That's a question somebody needs to ask.
Well, so I'll tell you this. There was an interview with Bill Belichick, and they were talking to him about fantasy football, and he goes, actually, fantasy football nerds are very valuable. And it was one of the pressures like, wait a minute, what? And he goes, oh, yeah. They have stats and information that you won't believe.
It's true.
And they go, so you look at that stuff? And he goes, yeah, there's some fantasy football guys that I call upon. And he goes, I can snap my fingers and they will bring me data on a kicker's down to the percentage in wind conditions above this and temperature. He goes, I can't get that information anywhere. So absolutely I harvest that data.
A lot of my favorite fantasy minds come from statistics backgrounds.
Yep.
And I happen to have some statistics history as well in my education. So it is a common theme that runs throughout the fantasy community, no question.
And we will need an intern next year for that as well.
Well, it wouldn't hurt to have one. We already have one on Twitter. James has said that he is interested in the position.
Fantastic.
So we'll have to bring James in for an interview. And James, if you're listening, which I'm sure you are because you listen every week.
I like Ashton cigars, by the way.
Oh, okay. That's gross. Are you referring to the Bill Clinton?
No, like
okay.
no.
When you bring up cigars
funny,
and interns,
that
come
was
on,
funny.
Brian.
But no, I do like
2 and 2 together,
cigars.
pal, equals 4.
Yep.
Come on. All right, so the answer, aside from doing the opposite of whatever Peterson says, there are only 2 positive matchups the rest of the way for Eagles runners. Week 13 at Cincy, their 24th ranked run defense, allowing nearly 117 yards per game, 4.4 yards per carry, 7 touchdowns on the season. The other positive matchup is Week 14 versus Washington, their 23rd ranked run defense, allowing over 115 yards per game, 4.6 yards per carry, 13 touchdowns on the season. Other than that, they get Seattle this week. They're ranked 7th. Green Bay 4th next week. Baltimore 1st. The Giants 5th. And the Cowboys 3rd in weeks 15 through 17. If you want to take a chance on Matthews or Sproles in that short 2-week window, good luck. Me personally, not touching them.
Oh.
1 for 2, Brian. Nice. Picking it up, pal.
Let's go, baby.
You might even have a chance to go 50-50 this week.
Ooh.
We'll see what happens. Because I got the extra question now this week, remember? Des Bryant's production this season has been all over the map. He has 3 games of 100-plus yards and or a score, and 3 games of 8, 19, and 40 yards total. Which will be the real Des Bryant the rest of the season in this new-look Cowboys offense? Dynamite Des or diminutive Des?
Dynamite Des. Without looking at the full breakdown, I believe Dez's bad games were early on. He has since picked up a little bit of chemistry. In the matchups I've covered, I said, he's not pushing the ball down the field, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, Dez rips off 100-plus and a touchdown and all this good stuff. So I like Dynamite Dez going forward.
We all know Ezekiel Elliott is lighting the fantasy world on fire with his eye-popping statistics. The Cowboys have had great success playing ball control by owning time of possession with that ground game, but Dak Prescott has actually been throwing quite a bit in recent weeks. He's got multiple scores in 5 of his last 6 games. The last time the Cowboys had a league leader in rushing yards, DeMarco Murray, back in 2014, Dez had a massive season with 88 grabs for over 1,300 yards and an astounding 16 touchdowns. Despite the fact that the schedule looks relatively difficult for several upcoming matchups, I'm banking on Dez to be dynamite with the help of Electric E, my friend.
Bam. Well, you got to drop that extra man in the box, and they have to break the coverage up a little bit. It's perfect.
We have one bonus question for you this week.
Sweet.
Because it is something a lot of folks are going to be asking about. I want your take on it.
I am taken, ladies. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. Bonus pop quiz question. Assuming Seahawks running back Thomas Rawls is active for Sunday afternoon's game versus Philadelphia, the amount of touches you expect him to get is A, 0 to 5, B, 6 to 10, or C, 11 or more?
I'll take 6 to 10. It's Brosyce's job now, no question. I don't see it being 0 to 5 because that's really low to just fall off. I would say 6 to 10. That's right in the breather, third down, popping in here or there kind of a deal. Maybe closer to the goal line work. Brosyce is really good at catching the ball.
There is a report out there that if he is indeed active, he will play, quote, considerably, unquote. It's a trap, Brian. It's a trap.
It is. I don't believe any head coach anymore.
Coming off a strong performance from rookie C.J. Brosyce in Week 10, not to mention the fact that head coach Pete Carroll said Rawls actually wanted to play last week, but the team decided to be more cautious with him, leads me to believe Rawls will be in the 6 to 10 range for touches. I say 10 or less as the Seahawks play host to the Eagles, currently the NFL's 12th ranked run defense that has only allowed 4 rushing scores on the season.
So it's a trap just made me think of this picture I seen on Facebook, where it had this cosplayer in Admiral Akbar's hat, but she had a bikini that was made up of the suit, and it said, instead of "it's a trap," it said "it's a tramp." It was pretty hilarious.
I love cosplay. Isn't that the greatest? I mean,
so awesome. I love it.
The creativity of some people, and they finally have this outlet. Cosplay's not new, obviously, but when it started becoming a thing at Comic Cons and things like that, I think it's cool. I'm a big fan. Big geek here. More matchups still to come. Don't forget, we're also going to talk playoffs soon. We'll have the Flea Flicker. We'll have the bargain bins. What don't we have is the question. I mean, we cover it all here. It's your all-encompassing one-stop shop. Week 11 of the fantasy football season. And Brian and I will break down, among other matchups coming up, New England, San Francisco. Start all your Patriots? You'll find out next on the 515 Fantasy Football Show. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio, Des Moines, Iowa. We're also on iTunes, on Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. If at any point you'd like to reach out to Brian or myself, we certainly invite that communication, and our guarantee, as always, we will never ignore you, ever, ever. 100% return. We will. You take time to reach out and communicate with us. We are going to return that favor. On Facebook, 515 Fantasy Football. On Twitter, at 515 Fantasy. He is at Ike FFB. That's IKEFFB. I am at Andy Hall Radio. And we are headed back into Week 11 matchups. New England at San Francisco. For the Patriots, Tom Brady, a B+. Here's the thing. I'm not expecting a huge game out of Brady this week against the Niners. When a team allows over 5 yards per carry to opposing backs, is it not prudent to assume someone like a LeGarrette Blount will receive a massive workload and likely explosive output? I know Bill Belichick can be a bit of a contrarian sometimes, but even he won't be getting cute with Sunday's game plan. Brady will do what he does, but don't expect massive numbers from him. LeGarrette Blount, an A grade, no reason whatsoever he doesn't have a monumental game this week. Absolutely none. James White, a B grade. I like White plenty this week, despite the incredible matchup for the likes of Blount. Because I believe the Pats will get up very big very early, White may actually get a decent amount of work out of the backfield, both carries and receptions. Julian Edelman, I'm going to give him an A- here. I think he's a super solid wide receiver 2 flex play. I really do. Look at what he did last week against a very tough Seattle secondary. 99 yards receiving against Seattle. That's good. And you add in the fact that Gronk might not be in the lineup this week.
Yeah, I guess that helps out a little bit.
It certainly does. It's not all going to go to Martellus Bennett. It's going to go to some of the pass catchers.
Not.
And how many of those pass catchers can you actually name besides Julian Edelman? Yeah, I guess
Chris
Danny
Hogan?
Amendola, Chris Hogan. We don't even know if Chris Hogan's going to play this week. But if he does, I mean, he could see some targets. And I think that goes back to Gronk being out of the lineup. So I guess if Hogan plays, Gronk doesn't, I give Hogan a C. Edelman, I'm going to stick with A-. Amendola's on the bench. And then Martellus Bennett, I give a B grade to. I like him a lot this week, especially if Gronk doesn't play. All right? And I don't think Gronk will. Over to the Niners side. Well, I felt like I had to explain the Edelman thing.
Okay, sorry.
I looked into it, and I'm like, Edelman he stands to benefit a lot if Gronk doesn't play. So over to the Niners, Colin Kaepernick a C+. Back in 2012, the last time these two teams met, Kaepernick played lights out, scoring nearly 30 fantasy points. Fast forward into the future in Week 11 of the 2016 regular season, my prediction is it won't be nearly as pretty. The Patriots give up a decent amount of passing yards per game, But I think there's tremendous risk for turnovers in this one as the Niners go into desperation mode. Carlos Hyde, a C+, New England, very average run defense, but since it's likely they get up big and early, Hyde in the run game may be largely abandoned, I fear. Jeremy Curley, a B- of all the Niners pass catchers. He's the most bankable. In PPR leagues, I think he makes for a decent flex play this week. Quentin Patton, a C grade, saw 9 targets last week against Arizona, but only hauled in 3 receptions for 52 yards. Admittedly, this is a desperation play, but all hands will be on deck in the Niners passing game on Sunday, and who knows. Torrey Smith, also a C grade, like Patton, a hope and a prayer at best. Vance McDonald is C grade, not a great matchup for tight ends as the Patriots do a fine job keeping the middle of the field covered.
Fine. Eagles at the Seahawks. Battle of the Birds, coast to coast. Quarterback Carson Wentz is going to get a C-. Seattle put a hurt on Brady statistically, and I would expect much worse here with Wentz. He hasn't been great on the road recently, and it won't get any better in Seattle, which, God, I love that city. So beautiful up there. Would love to retire there at some point. We just talked about Matthews and Sproles. Can't trust anybody here. They're getting C grades, C above. Seattle's just going to be brutal. They're going to have to be passing. We don't know who's starting what, who, why, when, or how. Seattle just beat the number 1 contender, and they're riding high, aiming for the Super Bowl. I'm looking for just a defensive massacre here against the Eagles, which is really going to hurt Wentz. If you have to put one of these guys in an emergency buy, I suppose, cross your fingers. Wide receiver Jordan Matthews, B-, 580 and 3. You'd figure he gets production, but it's going to be blanket coverage on Matthews. If he gets it, it's likely going to be those 6-yard slants across the middle, begging for a broken tackle. Dorial Green-Beckham, Aguilar, all on their bench. Tight end Zach Ertz, questionable hamstring here, but who else they got? It's your safety line. Give him a B just because of the tight end situation. On to the Seahawks side of the ball, quarterback Russell Wilson. I am giving him a B. I've settled down a little bit from watching his massive game here. The Eagles have a good pass defense and could give Wilson some fits. He looked amazing last week, but just when you think he's low-end QB material, he rises above all of the others. But temper your expectations a little bit. They've got a good running game now. CJ Prosise is in the box. New guy to own if you were quick last week and prior to hit him up on the waiver wire, you hit a jackpot. 26 rushes, 96 yards, 15 receptions for 203. I really like his pass catching ability and ability to run and make people miss in the open field. He's earned his keep. Let her rip. CJ Prosise, B+. Rawls, C. You heard it. We talked about it. Less than 10 carries this week. Eagles do give up 100 on the ground, but it's all going to be Prosise. Wide receiver Doug Baldwin, he is going to get a B. He boosted his numbers last week. Everyone went crazy. Public service announcement here, friends. Do not buy Doug Baldwin. Why, you might ask? He had 2 touchdowns coming into last week at New England. He just had 3. So now he has 5 total on the season.
Yeah, you can't expect him to do that again.
No, don't buy high on him. It's not
So if you look at the last half of last year, you see what he's capable of.
Well, and that's what's some of the conversations going on. I'm just, look, if he repeats it, great, but I'm not taking that risk. I'm not going to trade something big away. I'm not buying high on this guy. Just don't do it. If someone's going to flake him off to you, sure, grab him, but don't sell the farm for Doug Baldwin by any means. Jermaine Kearse, C+, Lockett, no. Kearse, they're going to be 26 receptions through 9 games, so it's just not even there. Tight end Jimmy Graham, technically your number 2 receiving option here, is 600 yards, 3 touchdowns. He could get some nice grabs here. Likely going to get some cornerback coverage rather than a linebacker this week, too.
Very interesting. The Sunday nighter is Green Bay at Washington. For the Packers, Aaron Rodgers, an A grade. Pass-heavy game script has paid dividends to his fantasy owners in recent weeks, as if having virtually 0 running game was the best thing to happen in fantasy circles, even though it's been terrible detriment to the team itself. Washington held Rodgers to just 210 passing yards and 2 scores in January when these 2 teams last met. It's likely we'll see more than 36 attempts out of A-Rod here, which should boost the numbers greatly. By the way, his attempts since week 3, 45, 42, 56, 38, 43, 51. It's a lot of passes.
Yikes.
James Starks, a B grade. We've seen multiple backs torch the Redskins all season long. In fact, no team has given up more rushing scores than Washington has, 13 total. Even though Starks is a mediocre talent at best, I give him a halfway decent chance to reach the end zone here, as he did in Week 10 against Tennessee. Ty Montgomery, I'm leaving on the bench. His usage in Week 10 or lack thereof leads me to believe the opportunities will continue to dry up now that Starks is back on the field. And the Packers wide receiver core already 3 deep. Jordy Nelson, a B grade, one of the most targeted red zone receivers in the league. Nelson has proven time and time again that he's got plenty left in the tank, and despite a relatively tough matchup for wide receiver ones like him, the volume he's likely to see cannot be denied. Devontae Adams, a B+. He's seen monster target numbers in the past month. Should continue to enjoy a ton of volume here, as Nelson likely gets Josh Norman in coverage, leaving Adams up against some of the league's worst corners. Hit pay dirt in the team's last head-to-head last January, FYI. Randall Cobb, questionable for the week. If he does play, a B- grade, a solid flex play against a pedestrian secondary that couldn't stop Adam Thielen from reaching the end zone in Week 10. Cobb, like Adams, scored in the team's matchup last January. Over to the Redskins, Kirk Cousins, a B+. We all saw what Marcus Mariota was able to do to the Packers' banged-up secondary last weekend. Cousins threw for 329 yards and a touchdown while also running one in last January. This year, he's been very efficient, completing nearly 67% of his passes for over 300 yards a game, a total of 14 passing touchdowns on the season, one on the ground as well. Rob Kelly, a B-. Green Bay still possesses one of the league's stingiest run defenses, allowing only 3.6 yards per carry, an average of only about 85 yards per game to opposing backs. They've given up 5 rushing scores on the year. That said, Kelly is coming off a very solid 22-carry, 97-yard performance against the Vikings' nearly as stingy run defense in Week 10. Chris Thompson, a C-grade, flex option in PPR leagues. Thompson should see a decent handful of targets in the passing game as Redskins attempt to hang with the Packers' quick strike offense. Jamison Crowder, a B grade, held to only 4 catches for 37 yards back in Week 10, but did find the end zone against the Vikings, who are a much stronger secondary than that of the Packers. Should put up flex-worthy numbers in this matchup. Deshaun Jackson back on the field this week, a B grade, likely returns just in time to take advantage of a plus matchup against the Packers. They allow over 270 receiving yards per game to opposing pass catchers, roughly 2 touchdowns via the air per game as well. Jordan Reed, an A grade. Green Bay allows 5.5 tight end receptions per game for an average of nearly 72 yards per game. They've allowed 4 scores to the position. I like him a lot. Vernon Davis, a C+. In play as a desperation start, and only after watching him take one to the house against Minnesota last week. And as a Jordan Reed owner, that,
not
my friend,
happy.
sucked.
Yeah,
I was
not happy.
I watched that and I went, ooh, that looks like 80. That looks like Jordan Reed because it looked like 86.
Yeah.
Then I saw the 5 and I went, it's Vernon Davis.
You gotta be kidding me.
And as a Vikings fan, of course, I was really super thrilled about that. But I was too busy being angry about my kicker missing extra points for Crape's sake.
Whoops.
Which won't be an issue going forward.
No, I don't think so.
Because he's gone.
Looks like he can make that tea time.
Although, like I said earlier in the show, this concerns me. Kai Forbath is who the Vikings signed. He's actually a less accurate kicker historically than Blair Walsh.
They just need someone to get through the season.
I hope they sign him for the league minimum. That's all I can say. Stick around. We have more still to come. One matchup, the Monday Nighter, Houston-Oakland, going to be a big game. And we'll talk preparing for the playoffs as well. Got the Flea Flicker, the bargain bins also still upcoming on the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. You are listening to the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio, Des Moines, Iowa. You're also able to get us on iTunes, on Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. I'm Andy Hall. That's Brian Eikenberry. Between us, over 40 years of combined fantasy football experience, which one person was a bit confused about, I think, on the SleeperBot app. Did you notice that? Somebody went, I didn't know they played fantasy football back in the 70s.
Oh, no, I didn't see that. That's why it's combined.
Yeah, and I said, you didn't read, apparently, because I said, combined. We have 2 hosts. It is true.
Silly geese.
This is my 24th season. Next year will be my 25th season playing fantasy football.
Ooh,
That's
we might
crazy.
have to do a special 5-on-5 fantasy football league.
Yeah, because there has been a little bit of talk about that. Yeah, there's been some rumblings, and I know a lot of our listeners have hit us up on Twitter and on Facebook too, and asked about the potential of a listener league next year. And this might just happen. So, happy 25th to me.
There you go.
Yeah.
You just scored yourself more work, sir.
Want to give everybody a heads up about next week because it's a special week, being that Thursday is Thanksgiving. Normally our show posts on iTunes and Stitcher on Thursday, okay? And it's the same day we air our show on 1350 a.m. ESPN Radio, Des Moines, Iowa. Next week, going to be a bit different. We're cutting the show early in the week. It will be posted on Tuesday next week on iTunes, Stitcher, and online as well. So if you're looking for Thanksgiving matchups and wondering how that's all going to work out, it's all going to be broken down and posted by Tuesday by Brian and yours truly.
It's going to be awesome. We're looking forward to it. Enjoy the holiday, spend time with your family, do all that fun, neat stuff. But, as you're driving and the kids are screaming in the background, fear not, friends. You can put in your earbuds and listen to the 515 Fantasy Football Show to get you to your destination.
Unless you're driving. I think it's illegal to have any kind of a headphone in when you're driving.
I don't care. I break the rules, son.
Do you really?
Yep,
You shouldn't
absolutely.
have admitted that on the air.
No, I have an auxiliary cable. I just crank it.
That's a smart move on your part, sir. So, yeah, just want to give everybody the heads up on that. We're all about being transparent here, and, you're following along, so let you know that, hey, you'll be able to get your show a little early next week, so that's good. Brian, one more matchup to break down. That's the Monday Nighter, and this one should be a pretty fun one to watch, I figure. It'll be in the black hole, Houston at Oakland.
Oh, that's where that is? Houston at Oakland, as you just stated. I probably should have listened to you before I started reading
This
my
is a
script here.
recurring theme, Brian.
Quarterback Brock Osweiler, he's going to get a B grade out of me. 1,800 yards, 11 touchdowns, 8 interceptions is not exactly what the Texans were paying for when they signed him. Worst passing game in the league, and the Raiders are getting a little bit better on defense. By volume, I would expect him to get 250 and 2 touchdowns, but likely will have an equal amount of turnovers to accompany them to lower that point total down a little bit. Running back Lamar Miller is going to get a B+. Raiders give up 114 on the ground. Miller has 840 combined yards. It will be a good day for Mr. Miller, as they will surely give him the ball 25 times, especially if Brock finds himself in trouble early.
Plus, your boy Alfred Blue's a little banged up, I hear.
Yeah, good. So I made a bet with a friend
Yeah?
that Lamar Miller, did I say this one last week?
I don't know.
Lamar Miller, at the beginning of the season, I think it was like week 1 or 2, I said, I bet you Lamar Miller, because he was high on Allen Robinson. I said, I bet you Lamar Miller scores more fantasy points than Allen Robinson. He's like, taking that bet in a heartbeat, man.
Miller's
Boom,
been like
down.
he's been like a top 6 back for like 3 seasons in a row.
Lamar Miller has him doubled up in fantasy points and standard scoring right now.
Duh. Yeah.
So easy jackpot for me.
Mm-hmm.
DeAndre Hopkins B-. Hopkins has been a massive disappointment. 10 yards per catch with 480 yards. Is it the QB play or is it him?
It's the quarterback.
No, I think it was him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think
disagree.
it's him.
Osweiler's horrible. Did he even throw for 100 yards last week? Like he was under 100 for most of that game.
Well, Brock is terrible, yes.
Oh, so bad.
But so
Houston
was Hoyer.
paid out the butt for him, too.
So was Hoyer. He was terrible, too. That's why they shipped him off. Terrible. Boom, gone.
It wasn't that terrible.
But it wasn't that terrible.
No.
But I think it's Hopkins. I don't think it's
Wow.
all.
I mean, it could be the emergence of Lamar Miller, too. I mean, honestly, he brings a new element to that offense they didn't have before.
Hopkins is on my do not draft list from here on
Interesting.
out.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe not as high as you would have taken him this year. That's
No,
for sure.
Well, and that's one of my notes. I'm like, I'm just glad he didn't fall to me in the draft because I was going to take him.
People were taking him like he was a consensus top 5 receiver.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
a first-round draft pick for many people.
Bullet dodged.
Wow.
Wide receiver Will Fuller, he's going to get a B- as well. Officially listed as questionable. He has 100 less yards than Hopkins, but 20 less receptions. Again, I think it's Hopkins.
I still think it's quarterback.
All right.
And Lamar Miller has a hand in it.
We'll see. Tight end CJ Fedorowicz, going to get a B. 303, manageable fill in for your tight end spot on the buys, but nothing more than that. People got all grumpy a couple weeks ago when I was giving old Fedorowicz here a hard time. that he hadn't earned his paycheck, and he hasn't. 303 touchdowns is not earning your paycheck.
Yeah, it was just like that one game where everybody knew he was going to score a touchdown because who was he playing that
I think
week?
it's when they played Detroit.
Detroit.
Yeah.
And we were like, it's pretty much a guarantee Fedorowicz is going to score a touchdown. And sure enough, he did. Sometimes matchups are that easy to break down, but sometimes they're not.
Onto
like
the Raiders.
Jason Witten a couple of weeks
Jason
ago.
Witten. Dude, who
Of
cares?
course, I called that one.
Yeah, and now he's on your bench.
And I called Gary Barnidge last year, too, by the way.
Uh-huh.
So,
what else you got?
I don't know. Are you thumping your chest at all? Because here I am. Over here.
Well, so last year, if we're going to do this and interrupt my...
why not?
My fabulous...
Let's interrupt your fabulous matchup.
Wacko for Flacco last week, huh? That was pretty awesome.
He's really not that great.
No, but he had a huge game last week.
He did?
Yes.
I didn't notice.
Oh, my God, you're terrible. You're terrible.
Why? Because he hit Steve Smith for a touchdown?
I nailed the whole Matt Ryan thing. Oh, Matt Ryan.
Rashad Perryman scored a touchdown. Ooh.
Yeah.
So anytime Joe Flacco throws for multiple touchdowns, it's reason for celebration.
When he's your bargain bin pick and he's on the waiver wire with like 17%.
Well,
owned,
listen, I think both of us have been very solid on bargain bin this year.
I like it.
This
especially
week,
when
maybe not so much.
This week is going to be...
it's tough. Yeah, I'm just going to be upfront with our listeners and be like, listen, I'm really not selling this guy to you, but for the sake of this segment, here it is.
To keep our show integrity intact, we have to pick somebody.
Yeah, there's a benchmark here. And earlier in the season, granted, these bargain bins are a lot more valuable to people that need the help. You know, I guess there's still teams on bye this time of year, but I don't know. When we get there, we get there. Go ahead and finish your matchup. Sorry.
On to the Raiders, quarterback Derek Carr. He's going to get an A. Killer pass offense meets a decent defense. I learned not to discount Carr early this year. 66% completion rate, 2,500 yards, 17 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Carr is cutting it up and will continue to do so, especially at home following his bye week. If he's on the road, it'd be a little different here, but I like Carr. Latavius Murray, I also like here. B+. Favorable matchup for Murray. If you have him, start him. Texans give up 120 on the ground, and depending if the passing goes a little rocky, he may exceed 20 carries this week. He doesn't have killer stats, but he showed up big prior to going on the bye, so I expect him to do the same this week. Amari Cooper, B-. Cooper excels in yardage, but disappoints in the touchdowns. I'm giving him that B- as game flow might dictate run-heavy second half. Crabtree is going to get the B+. I've been doing this all year, giving Crabtree a better grade than Cooper, and it's panned out. Crabtree has 3 times the touchdowns Cooper does. That's why he gets the better grade. Yardage is lacking. The red zone option is always nice. But if I'm picking wide receivers, I like them to have more TDs. I'll sacrifice the yards for the touchdowns. No question about that whatsoever. Seth Roberts going to get a C-, and that's why we interrupted it, because that's it.
Question.
Yes.
Fantasy playoffs. Do you go weeks 14 through 16, or do you go...
It has to end in 16.
15 through 17?
No, 14 through 16. Because, so there's the whole, well, if you got a good player and they bench them, depending on that, get that. But also, here's why. If you go 14 to 17, that means your regular season ends on an odd number, lowering the chance of, kind of that even split. So you can never be 500 ending on an odd week. So you're either going to be 9-7 or 7-9. You can't be 8-8.
I've been in 12-team leagues. I'm in one this year that you're also in.
Yeah.
A 12-team league, dynasty format, and we have 3 divisions of 4 teams each. So you play each team in your division twice. That's 6 games, and everybody
Which is
else.
Terrible.
And then you play everybody else once. So that's 8 more games. So that's 14-game regular season. 15, 16, 17 are your playoffs. And that's how that commissioner drew it up. I've never been a fan of that format. I think that there's a better way to do it where you're ending the regular season in week 13.
Yes.
First week of the playoffs, 14, then 15, and then the championship is in 16. And yes, you avoid all the crap that goes along with week 17.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real dart throw for a lot of players.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
if you go back and listen to our week 17 show last year, I don't even know how accurate we were there. We should probably go back and grade ourselves.
Yeah, we
there,
just kind of fudged through it.
We mentioned bargain bin picks. Been pretty good this year on the whole. I don't know how good this week will be, but we'll find out here in a bit. 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 1 receiver from each of us that chances are available right now on your waiver wire. Plug them in. Expect a decent amount of fantasy production from this week is, generally speaking, how we do these bargain bins. Brian's cheated a few times, but
Maybe.
we'll wrap up with the 515 Fantasy Flea Flicker as well. That's all next on the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. Final segment, this week's 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. Also on iTunes, on Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. I'm Andy Hall. That's Brian Eikenberry. Again, we invite you to join our online community on Facebook, 515 Fantasy Football, on Twitter, at 515 Fantasy. He is at IkeFFB, IKEFFB. I'm at Andy Hall Radio. And we invite you to reach out to us as well on the SleeperBot app, where we are regular contributors, including the big start-sit fiesta that happens every Sunday morning leading up to the kickoff of the early games. I can't believe we're almost to Thanksgiving, Brian. 1 week away.
Yeah.
1
Turkey
week away.
time.
I know.
Shopping
I'm
time.
such a fan.
I'm super
It's not
excited.
the shopping thing for me. It's definitely the food, the football.
Dude, I will wait in line for 3 hours.
Ugh.
I will elbow people. I will do whatever it takes. I am a savage.
I'd rather be taking naps.
I am a savage.
I like naps.
No. I like
right.
naps too, but
Going to wrap up with our 515 Fantasy Flea Flicker. We'll talk about a variety of subjects, whatever's left on the clock. But first, the bargain bin picks. Again, these are one quarterback, one running back, one pass catcher from each of us that are probably sitting there on your waiver wire. Nobody's interested in grabbing them. But you could this week plug them in and expect a decent amount of fantasy production from. Brian, begin with your quarterback.
Tyrod Taylor of the Buffalo Bills.
What's his percentage of owned?
Not much.
In the Yahoo leagues. I want to say that Tyrod Taylor he's definitely less than 50%.
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Which is crazy to me. Like, this is a guy he's a very solid quarterback too on your roster.
It's just association, especially at this point. A lot of people are shedding that extra quarterback to save room for those running backs.
I guess.
So that's why. But the reason I like Tyrod Taylor this week is because the Bengals are terrible, but the ability to go out there, score with your legs, and still be able to throw the ball to LaShawn McCoy, that's bonus.
Do you think a really good, sneaky good pickup right now would be Sammy Watkins? Do you grab and stash him?
It's possible.
He's going to come back before
He's
the end
going
of
to
the
come
season.
back, but that's a lot of lost time.
I agree, but
Lot of lost
might be a
time.
really sneaky pickup there if you like Tyrod Taylor. So
Well,
there you go.
I have a great roster. I don't need to worry about it.
Well, there you go.
What's your quarterback, Mr.
Oh,
Chops over here?
Thanks for asking. What do you mean, Mr. Chops? What does that mean?
I don't know.
I don't even know what that means, Brian. Like pork chops or what?
Maybe.
Okay. I'm hungry now.
I don't eat pork.
Really?
No,
Wow.
no.
You're
It's
missing out,
dirty.
my
It's
friend.
yucky.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
So good.
Very gross.
Oh, I love everything about the
Terrible
pig.
for you.
The pig.
I will eat some bacon, though.
I was gonna say, dude, if you
Don't-
sit here and tell me you ain't eating bacon,
No, I don't eat,
you're
like,
no
pork
longer
chops.
you are no longer my co-host. If that's
pork
the
chops,
case.
ham. I don't like that, but
I'm not a ham person.
I
either.
will eat the friggin' bacon. Oh, Bacon
We're-
Fest, baby, just
We're
went on
talking-
sale.
Is this the flea flicker?
Whoop, whoop. No,
We're
okay,
not quite
good
there
point.
yet,
Go.
Brian. All right, Cody Kessler. You
Yeah.
did some homework for me
I did.
during your matchup, and I appreciate that. This feels like a pass-heavy game script for the Browns, who are looking to shock the world, beat their arch rivals on Sunday. Kessler's production has been all over the map this season, but no doubt he's got some exciting weapons around him in Terrell Pryor, Corey Coleman, Gary Barnidge, Duke Johnson, Isaiah Crowell. It's a recipe for success in the fantasy realm at the very least if he can steer clear of turnovers. Who's your running back?
I was going to, in my matchup, call this as a trap game, and the Browns are going to get their first win here.
They
this
could do
week.
it. They always play the Steelers tough.
Yeah.
Always.
What are we doing, running back?
Yeah.
I am going to go with the recently dropped Christine Michael.
Okay. A lot of people dropped him.
A lot
We
of
said
people
not to do
dropped
it.
him. Like, you got to be kidding
I was
me,
on
right?
Twitter screaming almost in
Why?
all capital letters, do not drop him.
Well, a whole bunch of people did,
That was
and
stupid.
it can be everybody's. Go out there, add him up. It's not going to happen this week, but you know what? It's a stash, and do it now.
Yeah. Yeah, he will see the field eventually. Like I said, that's going to catch up to James Starks, the fact that he's, not that good. My running back, sticking with the Browns.
Jeez.
Duke Johnson. The Steelers are a mediocre run defense, having allowed 10 opposing backs to score on the season via the ground. They've also allowed 11 touchdowns via the air to opposing pass catchers, which leads me to believe Johnson could be a sneaky good play here, as he can do both. He can run and he can catch passes. Granted, Isaiah Crowell can do the same, and the fact that Johnson's been super disappointing all year long. But this is a grudge match between two teams that despise each other, and the Browns will want to employ any and all weapons they've got in order to have a shot at staying with Pittsburgh. So I'm throwing a dart here. I'm saying Duke Johnson. This could be the week for him. Who's your pass catcher?
My pass catcher is wide receiver Eli Rogers of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Man, I like him a lot.
He is owned in 19% of the leagues. I would pick him up in mine, but I already own Antonio Brown, and I don't want to double up.
Yeah.
Because I have to start Mike Wallace, which sucks.
Ugh.
But Eli Rogers' last 2 games has 145 yards and a touchdown. The only thing here is he's only catching about 66% of his passes. But if he can grab those extra 1 or 2 balls a game, he should be fine. It'll boost his production.
Turn your head and cough, Mr. Rogers.
Whoa.
Okay. My pass catcher is Tyreek Hill, Kansas City. With Jeremy Maclin likely to miss another game, Hill assumes his role as Alex Smith's #1 target in the Chiefs' passing game, which admittedly has a definite ceiling, but Hill has proven he's been more than capable of turning in explosive performances when given the opportunity. Take the speedster Tyreek Hill this week. You might be pleasantly surprised. All right, bargain bin is over. Now we're all about the Flea Flicker, which is anything and everything we want to talk about in the remaining time we have, which is, by my count, at about 4 minutes.
Bernie Mac.
Bernie Mac. What about him?
I was trying to write my matchups today, and I was just all over the place. It was taking me forever. Babies screaming, all sorts of fun stuff. But Bernie Mac was on, and I loved the Bernie Mac show. The Bernie Mac show was hilarious. My favorite episode was when his nephew was talking about gymnastics, and Bernie Mac's wife's trying to get him all psyched up, like, no, it's okay, he's not weak. His gymnastics will be really cool. And then she's like showing him these pictures of like these balance beam guys, where like the Olympics where all these big rough dudes, man. They're crazy. So Bernie Mac's all excited, and he invites his friends to go to this gymnastics meet to see his kid doing all this cool stuff. And he's in ribbon twirling, and it's he's out there dancing, and it's so hilarious. But it was a fantasy football show.
Oh.
It was a fantasy football episode of Bernie Mac, and his nephew is this big, like, super nerd, so he's all stats. Well, it's shot in Chicago, so Bernie Mac is all Chicago all the time.
Sure he is.
So his whole team is all Bears, and he's losing, and his nephew's, like, trying to make ads for him.
Horrible.
He's like, look at this. Brett Favre's on the waivers. He's like, watch your mouth, boy. So
exactly. Blasphemy.
So he takes him to this bar on the south side of Chicago, and they're watching football. And the nephew's like, what's it going to take to get one of these TVs on the Packer game, And it's just...
In Chicago?
Yeah.
On the south side? You could get killed for that.
It was hilarious because, like, everything that was happening in that episode is exactly what happens to first-time players or constant bottom, trough guys where they always go with their team and they got to have 4 people out there, It's just... It was hilarious.
So I'm ticked off, and I got to vent this last Friday on my other radio show on Laser 103.3, ESPN Radio's sister station across the hall. I didn't get a Nintendo Classic Mini.
Aww.
Brian did.
I did, sure did.
Yeah, Brian's like, oh, yeah, I got mine. I'm like, I didn't get
I
one.
was very sad, though, because I tried to buy, in one Walmart location, had 6. I was employing an army of people. That if you waited in line and you bought everyone in there, I would reimburse you for all of them and give you one for free. That was the deal. And this big box store chain changed the rules on me about 2 hours till sale time, and they said now it's only 1 per. So I was very upset, but I was going to buy one. I was going to buy them all.
I even went so far as to get, after I dropped my son off at school on Friday morning, I didn't do the midnight thing, obviously. I can't leave the house. I got the kids. But I can drop my son at school and have time to run to Target real quick, see if I can get in line and get one. Nope, that was out. So then I was forced to go the Amazon route.
Nope.
I signed in. I was ready to go for like an hour, and I kept refreshing. Okay, finally, there it is. And I hit it, reserve it. It's in my cart. I'm checking out. There's like a second where you have to like are you sure you want to check out now? It's like, yes. So I clicked it, and then it was gone.
Gone.
Like, I'm talking 10, 15 seconds tops. Whatever quantity they had on Amazon.com, gone.
That's hilarious.
No, it's not hilarious, Brian. I love the fact that you're happy because you got a Nintendo Mini Classic.
My buddy sold his.
Did not.
He sold his the next day for $250.
Well, and I don't blame him for
Boom.
doing that. And a lot of people have offered me since, opportunities to buy for, $200, and I had one for like $175, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to wait. If Nintendo finally meets demand like they should have with this on sale.
Not how you sell crack, man.
Oh, come on. Everybody should have one of these. I really think that. So Nintendo should be mass producing them now, and they should be on the shelves before Christmas. And,
I'll let you touch mine.
oh, you're such an ass. You know what? Brian's going to be taking next week off, maybe the next after that as well. I'm going to start breaking in my new co-host. It's just going to be me with a different voice.
You
basically.
and the dog.
Yeah, Ollie. Ollie, what do you think of the Redskins this week? Well, thanks for all that. Oh, Brian, I don't like you. All right, that's the end of this week's show. Thank you so much for listening. Best of luck to everybody. Tune in again next week. Again, we're posting Tuesday. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show. Bye-bye.